was that why is Descartes so famous? Because he is the father. He's considered the founder and the father of the theoretical philosophy. So that there is the school of empirical philosophy that is, for example, Aristotle, who is observing the world and is making conclusions based on his observations. So he observed, for example, that it's not always the best argument that wins. So he made a complete philosophy about how to be more persuasive in your argumentation. He observed the importance of theater, and he wrote actually how to make an interesting plot for theater, which is still like used today. That kind of way. So how to write a good plot with a twist and good faith and then a twist in the plot, and then how people will overcome. That is still used today. Now, Descartes was actually the first one who only used the inside of his head to philosophize. Actually,
how about Aristotle?
Aristotle, no. Aristotle was very much empirical. Maybe you could say Plato was more like Descartes, but not entirely, because Plato also had a school and also tried to kind of theorize what he observed empirically. But he asked himself also questions like, for example, is what we are seeing, is that real? And he theorized about it. But Descartes was completely theoretical. So he said, okay, I don't do anything empirical because I cannot tell what I observe is actually real. So he went one step beyond. One of the reasons why he did it is that he was actually of quite ill health. He was not very healthy. So his teachers always allowed him.
He was something wrong?
He was always he was not very strong. He was not a very healthy person.
What's wrong?
I don't know exactly. Kaze? I don't know. I don't know what disease he had, or whether it was a steady disease or whether he was just susceptible to all kinds of diseases. But he never got out of bed before 12 in the afternoon.
Oh my God.
Huh. But he didn't just sleep all the time. He was thinking. He was thinking in his bed. So without any empirical observation, he was thinking, and he was philosophizing in bed. And he was philosophizing, okay, what can I know for sure? Do I exist? Does the world around me exist? Does it really exist, or is it just a projection, like Plato claimed that we cannot be sure whether we can see the full reality, or that we are only observing a reflection of the reality. So why is Descartes important? Because Descartes was the first one to actually create a new stream in philosophy that 100% relied not on empirical observation, but 100% on no-ryoku. No-ryoku, complete abstraction of anything. So he just theorized, okay, what do I know for sure? And he was that's why it's called Cartesian skepticism. He took nothing at face value. Everything that he observed, he questioned. And if you question everything, he couldn't prove anything. So, for example, the question, does God exist? He could not answer that question. He wanted to believe that God existed, but he couldn't answer that question. He couldn't answer the question, is what I am observing real? He could not answer that question. Do I exist? Or am I just an empty vessel. So basically, he theorized so much back because he wanted to create a starting point, a point zero. One thing, if there was something that he couldn't be sure of, then there would be, maybe he could derive from that other things that he could be sure of. Now, the famous saying, I think, therefore I am, was his breakthrough moment. That was the first thing, the most fundamental thing, his stepping stone, based on which he was going to build an entire model of the world. So the things that he could be certain of. For that, he became very famous. I think, therefore I am, or he probably thought, je pense donc je suis, but because he was French. But that was his starting point, and based on that knowledge, that because I think, I know that I have thoughts, therefore I know that I am. That was the starting point, and he derived from that God exists. Now, with that proof, there's a lot of things that are wrong. So Descartes didn't become famous because he had irrefutable proof, for example, for the existence of God. He did not. But
He denied God.
No, absolutely not. No, he definitely, he was looking for ways that he could prove that God existed. But I don't think that he was absolutely objective in his pursuit to prove this. He wanted to prove it. He didn't want to derive at the conclusion that I cannot prove that God exists. I think for him and for his brand value, he tried to persuade us in believing that God exists. But with his proof, a lot is wrong. But his attempt, I mean, the way, his approach, his methodology.
He couldn't prove.
Well, I don't think he could. Today there are very few philosophers and very few people who actually believe that the proof that Descartes provides, that God exists, is actually valid. There's a lot wrong with it. The proof goes a little bit like this, if I remember correctly. So basically, the premise is that God is immeasurably good. So God basically means good. So it's the best what we can get. So if that is true, so if that premise is true, so God is the best that we can, the best there is, basically. That's the internal goodness. If that is true, we know that God exists. Why? Because if God did not exist, if God was just a fantasy that we imagine that it was that what he was, and that was very good, it would be even better if he would exist. Therefore, God exists because if he wouldn't exist, there would be a better version of God, and that was the God that would exist. Therefore, since God is the best there is, we know that he exists.
Say again?
So God is the ultimate, is super, right? So there is nothing better than God. God is the absolute best.
Okay.
Right? So that is the premise. That premise is very important because based on this premise, he says that if God would not exist, there would be a better version of God. Namely, God that exists. Therefore, since God is best, we know that he must exist.
It doesn't make sense.
Well, it makes complete sense, but the premise is completely weak. God is the best there is. I mean, that's okay. Based on that premise, you can prove anything.
Okay. Not persuasive.
No, it's not persuasive at all. But I mean, basically, that was he wanted to give that message. So, what is important, I think, to realize about Descartes is not whether he was completely flawless in all his philosophy, but what was important, that he introduced a method for philosophy that inspired many philosophers after him to come with new proofs and more theories that would help us to understand the world better. So he basically is the founder of the theoretical, the purely theoretical school in philosophy. That's why Descartes matters.
Okay, it means he started. What is a philosophy? Right? So philosophical approach or philosophical mindset.
Right.
And before him, we don't have kind of sort of
Purely theoretical. So basically, from your bed, and you're just thinking a little bit, and you come up with, I got the proof that God exists, for example, or I now know that I exist because I'm thinking. Therefore, I must exist. There's something or someone who has thoughts. That's me. But that's kind of close to what Nishida was saying about his existence. He know that the moon existed through his existence, right? They became one. Because the moon was observed by him, the moon, object and subject became one. Therefore,
okay, a little bit different. Ishida is thinking is, okay, moon is we just concentrate your nerve into moon. You forgot you yourself. So it means you will support to be nothing. Okay? And also, you observe, you watch. But Japanese language, we say, not you, not I. Just observe, watch. It means you and I itself
become one. So subject and object.
It means nothing. Absolute nothingness means you observe moon and you yourself nothing. Because you forget everything, right? You yourself forget everything. And you observe is just place for watching moon.
Right.
Okay, watching moon is actually not you yourself is nothing. Okay?
Right.
So Nishida said absolute nothingness. This is and then self-awareness. Okay, you yourself nothing.
Right.
Then sort of things you will going to get self-awareness. So self-awareness of absolute nothingness means your nerve concentrate on watching moon, but you are not exist. Okay, you are not exist.
So you separate yourself from your ego.
Not separate. This is unified. Okay, and you and moon and you is unified.
So
and you yourself
subject
nothing.
and object become one.
Exactly, but you yourself nothing.
Right. I think we mean the same thing.
But Western philosopher is always they say you and I.
Yes.
But Nishida philosopher, they do not have any you and I. Okay.
Right.
Just only objective existence.
So what Descartes says is that basically I exist because I know that these thoughts are there. So these thoughts must be contained and originate from somewhere, and that must be
Nishida said, I itself do not exist.
Right.
So he said this is different from Westerners thought and Japanese thought. Japanese usually we don't say I am. Japanese we don't say sort of this word, only the narratives. Right?
Okay, so maybe can I build a bridge then between Nishida and for example Descartes or Western philosophy? Let's put it not Descartes, Western philosophy, because basically if if that is true, then if I would become God, if I am God, if like basically what we Western philosophy is also looking for God, right? Does God exist? Basically, follow the way to God. But Nishida is basically finding the way to yourself, or basically getting rid of your ego, to getting into the essence of yourself. Is that the essence of yourself? Is that the same as the Western God? So you're looking for the essence, right? And so where do you find the essence? In Western culture, we believe that the essence lies in the hands of God. That's the essence. That's where everything comes from. That's what everything started, and that's where we all come from. So we need to find God. That's a given. But like what Nishida is saying, and Zen Buddhism is saying, is that we are basically looking at beyond the ego. We really truly find ourselves, or actually becoming, getting out of our own ego and awareness, and become one with everything around us. That is basically finding the essence, but not in a God, but in yourself. So if I, in Eastern philosophy, is God in Western philosophy. So basically,
Nishida said,
in you can say that in Eastern philosophy.
exists.
Does he say that God exists?
Yeah, maybe he or she said somewhere, but I didn't study that.
I would actually say that basically, I am God is what I would like if I were to explain that. If you say that I am God, then basically what Nishida is saying is the same as what Western philosophy is looking for, the essence. We are looking for the essence, and the essence lies in me, therefore I am God. The essence, in the essence.
I am God. What do you mean I am God?
You're God too?
Okay, maybe for better understanding, like this. I just, as I told you, last February, last year's February, not last February, last year's February, God,
2017.
God ordered me to write novel. God ordered me to write books. Since then, I'm started to write a book 7 days from 6 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night. Every day. This is, I never experienced it before in my lifetime. Okay? 6 to 11. I willingly write book. It is not common sense. This is not normal attitude. Right? Not normal human being. It's very exceptional. But God ordered me to write a book. I don't know how long, but still 1 year, 6 months that I've written up already 18 books. This is not human being we're doing. Not absolutely not human being doing. So I believe God exists. Okay, God come to me.
Okay, but what?
Book.
Okay, but so then who
who
is God?
I don't know, just moon or the moon. Okay, I forgot. I'm nothing.
So I'm if I would be Nishida, I would say
no. What I want to say,
God is not there. God is here.
No, I just observe moon.
Right.
And I just forget myself. I forget my time. This moon, okay, replacing God. Okay, God come to me. I forget myself. I'm nothing. But God come to me.
I don't think the point is the moon.
What is it?
The point is that basically you become you forget everything around you. You forget your ego, you forget your pride, you forget everything, and you become one with yourself. You are not distracted by anything that goes on around you, money, status, everything else. So you get rid of all these earthly concerns. Then you find a kind of internal peace that releases the energy to write books.
By the way,
So what I would say is that yes, maybe God came to you and told you, but I would say as a non-believer in God, no. Well, maybe I think you find the peace in yourself to write these books and the drive to find yourself because you got over all these earthly concerns and you find the energy to do that. So I would say, yes, you found God, but God is actually in you and not there. Western philosophy would say, yes, you found God and God is there and God told you to do this. And in Eastern philosophy, they say, yes, you found your calling,
Oh, God,
that
coming in your
God
heart.
is in you.
This is different. Okay. Better understand. By the way, is it true?
I don't know.
Huh?
But the way I understand it is that if we actually put I is God, then there is a very there's a very much closer connection between Eastern philosophy and Western philosophy.
By the way, Western philosophy is God order you to do something.
Oh yes.
But Eastern philosophy, God
Order you or you.
God lives
find
in
God.
your heart.
Yes.
Western philosopher never says that. God lives in your heart.
No, I don't think. I think that actually we put God outside of us. We find God. We're trying to find God.
I mean, God is different.
God is not in us.
Different entity.
Yes.
But Easterners philosopher is God inside you.
Yeah. Is what I.
Oh, this might be understandable.
Now I hope that not
so
too many
sorry.
people from Western.
Kimoto cannot see.
Oh. 申し訳ない.
But we are discussing, but we are explaining the contents of the. Oh, what camera? Why?
Why? What?
No, wait.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Bingo. Oh, you can,
Every time WhatsApp coming up.
just drag it into your applications and you're gone. Then it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So you just drag it from the app icon to that map and then it's gone.
What? By the way, okay.
Where is it?
No, I deleted it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, so let's continue where we were at. I suggest that we leave.
Moving to another one.
So. So we.
By the way, have you studied philosophy before?
No. No, we learned a little bit about Plato and Socrates in school.
A very good opportunity for your study, right?
Right. No, absolutely. For me, it was a wonderful assignment because
Exactly, I never experienced it before. That's right. We spent a lot of time for Nishida. We spent a lot of time on Confucius. And this morning also, I studied the Gao Chi Chi. Gao Chi Chi is how to say? Collect your mind.
Arrival. Okay. Arrival. Yeah.
Collect your mind, and you go into the nature of truth, nature of things, and collect your mind.
Is it mindfulness? Because actually nowadays in Western society there are a lot of people who embrace the idea of mindfulness. I don't know where it comes from. And who is the father of that idea? But mindfulness is very popular.
Find my family.
I see you at 11
Maybe yes. I think mindfulness.
11.
and 6.
Okay. Collect
Okay,
your
11.
mind.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Collect your mind
I'll pick up
means,
my family and I'll call it again.
Yes.
collect your mind means you try
Thank
to consider what is a true virtue, and you try to avoid your desire, and focus on virtue.
Right.
Then you're going to get the nature of things. This
True.
is Confucianism, one of the most important source. Okay? So for doing that, you need to first of all try to eliminate any kind of obstacle like a fame, family, money, status. Take all those out, and then you can not only listen, you can hear the other people saying. Okay, receive it. Receive your things the other person or wife saying in your mind. If you eliminate every kind of sort of things, and this is here. Okay. Then after that, but here this is your mind is you have 60% of objection against her, even if receive. But your heart has a good or bad mindset when you're born. You have it in your mind. Okay, in your mind you have it.
Right.
So even if you have 60% objection against her, this is current your brain, but your heart understand. Okay, your brain against her, but your heart understand. That you keep it those what she said overnight. Okay, tomorrow morning you will accept 100% of what she said, because your heart is your heart knows what is a bad and good and bad in your heart since you born. Okay, okay. So tomorrow morning, oh, okay, what she said. Yesterday I against her, but now it's this morning. I can understand what is her meaning, what his intention is. Okay? Then, one more step. Then after that, okay, yesterday what she said, but let me see. Consider for my 5 ethics, or consider for my 5 virtues, consider for my 3 virtues, so forth. Moral, issue. Then finally I can decide I can accept what she said or not. 3 steps. So those 3 steps, everybody cannot do that. First, you can hear, okay? Because protect what she said.
Right. So immediately, wall goes
Yes,
up.
Second is you're going to complain her. Even you listen, complain her. Okay? I disagree with you. But wait a minute. Your heart and head is different, okay? Wait a minute, one night. Then third, you're going to consider what she said based upon your version. 3 steps. This is correct your mindness. Then you can get the nature of things. This is
the third step. I'm not really clear what you mean.
First step. Okay, you never listen.
Right.
You never listen to me.
Right.
Because you protect my fame, my money, my position, my family and everything.
Right.
My foreigners different from Japanese, so forth. But this is not common sense. Son of a bitch, I don't hear you, sort of thing. But you should hear. Okay? You open your mind. Open your mind, you open your society. You hear. Not only listen, but hear. Okay? Second, after hear, but you have a lot of complaint for me.
Right. You don't agree yet.
Right? I don't agree with you.
Right.
But don't say anything. You must be patient. Okay? Don't make opinion against him or her. Overnight, you keep in mind. But somewhat tomorrow morning, I don't know why. I must find it. Tomorrow morning, I'll find, what she said is okay. I accept it. Acceptable. I don't against it. This is 100% you can accept it.
And what's the third step?
Third step is then, okay, I accept. But still some portion is not agree. I accept, okay. Understand, accept, but some portion is I disagree with you. I cannot follow you. This is third step. What is the basis for third step? Is based upon your virtue. Okay? Based
Your
upon
values or your virtues?
your virtue and value, moral virtue. Okay? Then you can decide this person, I disagree with her.
And then you're going to give your opinion, or are you?
No. Just wait and see. Always you can have opportunity to tell her or tell him. But not always she's not going to accept your opinion. Because also she has opportunity to open her mind. I don't know always. Maybe she's good her mental positioning or good situation, then she will accept what you said. At that time, you're going to tell her, okay, at this point, I don't understand, or I can accept you. Then she will going to listen, hear from your opinion. Not always, okay, but you must be watching timing to persuade her.
So
Why is watching and persuade her is we have reason. First of all, always daily life, you are accustomed to hearing from her what she said. So she understands always you support her. Okay? So if that kind of base you have, she will going to listen to you. Otherwise, she never listen to you. This is one of most important Confucianism philosophy.
I know a Western philosopher or a writer or whatever who actually, I don't know where he gets his ideas from, but he's very famous. And
Who's he?
Eckhart Tolle.
What?
Eckhart Tolle.
誰?
Let's Google. Let's Google. Eckhart Tolle. He talks a bit strange, but I wrote a few of his books. Oh, sorry. Yep.
Who's she?
One hour and 30 minutes. That's too long.
Who's he?
He's a
Dutch?
no. It's probably German.
German? Philosopher?
So. Well, this is not him. This is actually an explanation of Guide to the Power of Now. It's too long.
Philosopher usually is talking too long.
Too long.
Maybe
probably.
spiritual person, right?
Right. This is too long. 70 minutes. Well, 17 minutes? Okay.
What he's doing?
He's actually explaining, I think he's probably very much inspired by Buddhism, but he kind of combines...
Buddhist?
So he kind of combines Buddhism with Western spiritual values.
Really? Like Nishida?
Right. So... He's an interesting read. I got this book as a present, and I thought, tsumanai takedo, the person who gave it to me.
Can you eat it?
I want to try a little bit, but so I thought, this is definitely not for me. But so I thought, because the person who gave it to me.
Use the tissue. It's your finger. Get dirt.
Oh, really? So I read it as a kind of service, but I was actually fascinated by the book. It was actually very good.
Very good. Can you eat it?
So far, so good.
Try. Eat them all. This is not Japanese food.
I can eat it. Okay, here we go. 17 minutes, 18 minutes.
How would you like to run a fulfilling business that gives you the time to do the things that are truly important to you?
Which nationality he is? Not European.
Him. This was
Indonesia.
here. This is him. This is advertisement.
I had an encounter not long after I experienced the awakening. I was in a waiting room somewhere, and this huge guy came in. Compared to him, I'm just this puny little guy sitting there, and he planted himself in front of me, and obviously enjoying his power. I can't remember what he wanted. He wanted something, and I could sense that sense of presence intensifying. And I just looked, and he said a few things, and suddenly he became extremely disconcerted, because there was no attempt on my part to put up any kind of defense or compete in any way. And he got deflated like a balloon and didn't know what to say or do anymore. That's an interesting phenomenon. So the important thing for you is, in any situation, be in touch with that inherent power of presence, because ultimately that is the power of now. Ultimately the now is the presence, and the presence is you. So, and ultimately you are, in its deepest sense, you are the now, because the now is the presence, and this is why I speak of the power of now. The power of now is also the power of you, and not the personal you, but the you that remains and never was not connected, and always is connected, and always is an intrinsic part of universal power itself, universal consciousness itself, the one consciousness that underlies all phenomena, the one consciousness of which all phenomena are only a temporary expression. So there's enormous power there. How that manifests in this world is a secondary thing. Perhaps it only manifests as an emanation that comes through you, or it flows into something that you do or create. And it's a great thing to feel that power, which is not comparative, because you know that everybody else is also a temporary expression of that inherent power, although most people don't know it. It's the famous guy that I spoke of in perhaps the power of now. The beggar is sitting on this old box for many years, asking for little coins, and then somebody says, "What's inside that box? I've never looked." And it's filled with gold. And I gave that analogy or parable at the beginning of the power of now. So that is discovering that power in you, and for most people, they're looking for little substitutes to give them a sense of who they are. And of course, this is the reason why it is not unusual for humans to awaken spiritually, to awaken to who they are in their essence, when either one big thing or many things that they had derived their identity from, good looks, physical strength, possessions, abilities to do this or that, recognition, social status in society, those things, and suddenly they lose these things, or they lose one big thing that was the main, that gave them their sense of identity, the one main thing that gave them their sense of identity, and that's gone. And that's, of course, would be, at first, is terrible suffering, and then it can force a human to that deeper place, because out here, unless you quickly, the ego might make an attempt to quickly rebuild some mind-made identity by creating another narrative. That's possible too. Not every human who loses, who experiences great loss necessarily goes to that deeper place, but the potential is there. So it could be a sports person who is great master of some sports, and then he or she has an accident, can never participate in that activity again, and that gave him or her the sense of identity. It at first leads to terrible suffering. And then potentially there is a deepening there. And the essence, then you are forced into your essence. There's a medieval image of Fortuna. Fortuna is a goddess of good luck or fortune. It goes back to Roman times. That shows the fickleness of things, the transient nature of all the things of this world, which are the things that people identify with. It gives them their sense of identity, their self-esteem. And it has a Latin inscription on it. It's an image of the goddess, and translated from Latin it says, this is supposed to be a king speaking, or former king, which king stands for any ego, and it says, it has these words in Latin. The first word is, I shall reign. The next word says, I reign. To reign, to reign a kingdom. I shall reign. I reign. I have reigned. I have lost the kingdom. The normal sequence of events.
What he said, I don't understand.
Well, he's actually talking about the same thing that you're talking about. So he's talking about
He says sports. What is sports?
sports. So basically, people derive their identity from material things, from certain elements outside things. Like the athlete identifies himself with his athletic achievements. The rich man identifies himself with his fortune. You can identify with all kinds of things, but these are not the essence. This is not you. This is just the outside. This is he calls it the ego. So people are trapped in their ego. They are because of a projection that they build of themselves from past experience. So from the past till now, they have achieved certain things. They have accumulated certain wealth. They have built up an image of themselves which limits them of being their true selves. So they are concerned with status, with ego, and that is because of who they were or who they will be. But the answer, finding yourself, is being in the now, which is very close to Nishida, who is also says becoming unaware of everything around you. Observing the moon, object and subject becomes one, becoming unaware of yourself and becoming one with everything around you. That is the power of now. That's what Tolle is talking
What he's
about.
talking about, sports person is he got the damage.
So basically, that's an opportunity for growth. That's an opportunity
Well,
where basically he loses the thing that he identifies with, that he clings to, that he derives his own person to, that gives him pride, that gives him a certain status. But that status also prevents him of actually getting in touch with the deeper person that is underneath him, the gold inside the box of the beggar, and that is his true identity. So the beggar has been sitting on top of this box of gold all the time, but he never cared to look, and it was there all the time. So he says that people are basically, they are captured by superficial things, by things that are outside of the essence of that they really are. So that everything around the core is the ego. So if you get rid of the ego, if you get rid of the past and the future and live in the today, in the now, you have no fear. You have nothing to lose. You're just there and you have a strong presence. So you gain strength and you become a stronger human being.
Okay, again, I don't understand this. He said the sports person, he got damaged and he can play again. He cannot play again.
Right.
And then what he said?
It's an example. It's an opportunity for growth. So basically, he's talking about that box of gold. He's talking about reaching your true potential. Your true potential is not being a sportsman, not deriving your personality from superficial things like athletic achievement, like money, like all these things. That is not your true potential. Your true potential is getting rid of your anxieties from the past and from the future, of everything that comes with it. Your whole luggage, like everything that you have in your luggage, is a result from the past, and everything you project to the future, your anxieties, your fears, is what you have in the future. So you have all these things around you that are not really you. People identify with them, but they are not you. They are not your true essence. So what he's saying is that, and then we come also like in the field of meditation and things like that. So you need to get rid of the luggage of your past and the anxieties of your future to become who you are in your fullest potential. That means getting rid of everything and getting rid of your status, your ego, and everything else, and reaching that box of gold and getting the strength, and getting strength in the process.
Getting strength in process.
Right, because you have no luggage, you have no anxieties, you have nothing to fear. You're much stronger. Nothing basically can touch you.
Yeah. Still don't understand. So sportsman lost his something.
Right.
He can make it.
He gives that example as a possibility. So basically, the sportsman is a celebrated figure because he excels in sports, and because through his achievements he derives certain pride, right? Which gives him kind of social status. But that's social. So if he lost his status, then some people rewrite the narrative and they become a successful businessman, for example, and they say they substitute their physical achievements with their financial means that they managed to accumulate, and they create a new narrative. But other people, they lose their athletic ability, they lose their something that they can project their personality on, and they go deeper. They're not trying to change and find a new create a new narrative, but they are going to look what's inside that box where they have been on all the time, and they discover that there is actually gold in that box.
Why is postman the gold?
No, any person is has
okay, more simple, to simplify. Sportsman got damaged, he can play sports. But what he said?
what he says is that basically that's an opportunity for growth.
Why for growth?
Because he's distracted. He's not himself. He projects his personality to something very superficial. His athletic achievement, that's his pride. It prevents him from finding himself, from finding the true strength in himself, his personality, finding God. It's exactly what you're talking about. This is exactly the same what you're talking about. So getting rid of your pride, getting rid of your status, and everything else. This is what he's talking about as well.
So he said, so this sportsman should keep pride or something?
No.
What he said? What
He said,
sportsman the lost his
it's it's kind of simple. So we have the past, we have the future. So the past gives you all your luggage, everything that comes with it, your past achievements as an athlete. So that builds actually a kind of like a layer around you that you project to other people and that you believe in. So you believe that I am this athlete and I have superior athletic skills, and you take certain pride in that. You live in that world. You live here. You live in the outside, in this world. So you're not looking inside. You're looking outside. So far so good, but you're not realizing that that the gold is in here, that there's actually in the now, not in what you have done in the past or the anxieties you will have in the future that you may get injured or whatever. That creates all kinds of uncertainties and insecurities. This prevents you from actually just being in the now, looking at the moon and becoming one with the moon, because you're distracted. You are looking at more superficial things. So what he's talking about is actually becoming more translucent and becoming more aware of what's happening right now, without any fear, without any other thoughts, without any distractions about status, money, or whatever. Just being in the now and being free of any concerns or any superficial thoughts, but just appreciating and fully observing what's happening right now, which is very close to, I think, what Nishida is saying. I think I wouldn't be surprised if he read Nishida or has been even more than that. He's a follower of Nishida or very much influenced by him. Yes.
He's influenced by Nishida?
I would not be surprised if he was. I think that what he's saying is very similar to Nishida's philosophy.
Okay, let's continue. I don't understand well.
Old age is a great opportunity for that, unfortunately missed in many, many cases, tragically missed the opportunity as old age approaches, and then you enter old age, proximity of death, loss of physical abilities, of social status, retired, who am I when I no longer have that title, my work. All these things are great opportunities for going deeper. And what we are attempting to do now is getting as many books and other material out to old people's homes everywhere, and also hospices and hospitals and so on. Because those are great places where spiritual transformation could happen. So the important thing then is sense your presence, the presence of you, which is not the person, something deeper. That is consciousness, being aware of itself. And then you no longer need a narrative to tell you who you are. Free of that conceptual sense of self. And this telling yourself a story in your mind about your life, that also goes out of the window. My life. This is what it has come to. All those illusions that I had, all those wonderful ideas I had when I was 20. Oh. Now you may well still be at the peak of your success, worldly success, and that's fine. Why not enjoy it? It's not who you are, so you better go into the presence because it doesn't last. With it also comes the wonderful ability to appreciate other human beings, what they can do, what they know, how they look, without feeling diminished by appreciating the external things connected to another human being. The ego can't do that, because if the ego appreciates something, it might pretend because it wants something from you, but if the ego appreciates something, it feels diminished. If you meet somebody who obviously looks so much better than you, and the ego feels diminished by that. So sometimes it tries to say something critical about that person in order to restore the injured sense of self. It's absurd, but that's how it works. But when you come from presence, you can look at a beautiful form of a human being and appreciate that and feel it's so beautiful. Or the achievements of another human being, to appreciate their achievements. Great, what wonderful things that this person can do, it's so wonderful. I would never be able to do that. And yet, the fact that you would never be able to do that, because perhaps you're not strong enough, or you're not inclined in that particular direction, does not diminish anything of you. So the appreciation of others then comes in, and it's a lovely thing. I even appreciate when I occasionally see people getting into their Ferrari, and of course usually their ego is walking with them, and so the car, and usually it's in red color just to make sure that everybody notices. And I love that thing too. It's a beautiful thing that somebody built, and this ego is enjoying himself. That's okay.
Okay, I don't understand. Very difficult.
Okay, so
Do you understand?
yeah, I think I do understand. So he's talking about finding yourself, that means your true self, through consciousness. So the state of identifying yourself with a role that you play, or an achievement that you do, or something that you're good at, or a job that you have, a title that you hold, that is a state of being unconscious. That's holding on to an ego, and then that ego lets you, for example, also compare yourself with others. So, for example, your ego, if you meet somebody who's obviously more handsome, more stronger, a better athlete, or smarter, or whatever, your ego might actually feel diminished by that. And because the ego is diminished, it's trying to criticize. So you cannot enjoy the company of those people, because your ego doesn't allow it, because it's constantly comparing itself. That is basically it diminishes the awareness of beauty around you. It diminishes how you can appreciate things around you. He gives an example, for example, about the Ferrari, or criticizing. So his point is that by not being aware, by not being conscious, you cannot be you, because you are identifying with things that are basically a role that you play. That's something that you did in the past, or an achievement, or an ability that you have, but an ability is not you. That's just a small part of you. You are much more essential than the fact that you can play tennis very well, or that you can run very fast, or that you can make a lot of money per year. Those are just small manifestations of you. That's not your true being. And by identifying with these small things, you become a smaller person, because you cannot enjoy the rest of the world, because by identifying with your ego, you become competitive, and your ego is trying to always win and compare and measure up against other people. So you become unaware of yourself, and you cannot appreciate the world around you. So becoming conscious will make your experience much deeper, because it will reduce you of your fear. It will bring you to your essence. And it will also allow you to appreciate other people and other things around you much more, because you are not trying to compare. You do not feel diminished by others, other achievements, and constantly want to measure up, because you don't care about your ego and the insignificant, the insubstantial things. So he is telling you to just get rid of everything that is not you, not the roles that you play, not the money you have, not everything else, and become more conscious, live in the now.
No, I don't know. More simplified.
Kimoto-san, do you understand it? No? Okay.
It's very difficult.
Okay. All right. So, first of all, every human being has its core, but a human being is born. It starts, for example, when you get toys as a kid, right?
Toys.
When you get a toy, then you learn it's your toy. It's not your brother's toy. It's your toy. And kids learn to get upset, or they get upset because the brother wants to takes your toy. You get angry because you identify with that toy. That's when the ego is born. You feel that you want to hold on to that thing because it's yours. It's the ego. That's when there's a separation from who you are and what you have, for example. And people feel if somebody takes that toy away from you, then basically they are challenging you as a human being. So you identify with that toy, but you also identify with your car, with your later on in life, with your position on your business card, with how much money you have, how good you look, how beautiful your wife is, with everything else, with how many publications, just everything. So that becomes part of who you are. But it's not, because it's not you. It's the things that you did. It's the things that you own. It's everything that is basically distracting. It's taking away from you. So you are identifying yourself with things and with skills and with appearance. But that's not you. Those are just the roles that you play. So people start to identify that and see themselves, for example, as a CEO or a CFO, and they can get very angry because they do not feel respected as a CFO of this company. But it's the CFO is not you. That's just a role that you play. So what he's saying is that by adopting to these roles, by believing into these roles, by buying into these roles, by believing that you are the role that you play, you become, you lose the touch with your deeper self. So you cannot see things as they are. You cannot stand still and look at the moon and think of nothing, because you think of everything. You think of your car, your Ferrari, or the fact that your neighbor bought a bigger car than you did. There's nothing to do with you. It's completely, but if you identify with that car, if that car is an extension of you, then you can get very upset about that. And all these thoughts, all these things are distractions about you being here and looking at the moon. You have anxieties about your neighbors. You have anxieties about the future. You have things about the past. You see that other people make more money, to play better tennis, run faster, have superior looks or whatever. But it's nothing to do with you. What really matters is you now here and the moon and observing that beauty. But if you're not here, you cannot become one with that moon. That's what he's talking about. What's this? So I was looking at a bridge between Nishida and Western philosophy.
Medo-san, Descartes said that I think, therefore I am.
Yes.
But it's very innovative thinking in that age of the Europe.
Right. Right.
Because my impression, God creates everything. Therefore I am.
No way, because can I know that I am? Maybe other people are, or other things are, but I could be complete, that I could be a figment of my imagination. I don't know. I don't know that what I feel could be, those senses could actually be non-existent. So you cannot know whether you actually exist or not. So God could also be a figment of my imagination. Could be. So without the proof that you exist, God could also be a figment of my imagination. Hey, I have an imagination. So somebody is having an imagination. That must be me. Therefore, I exist. Oh, if I imagine that, then and we accept the premise that God is the best thing that ever. That's the source of everything. Even it's
My impression of the Western thinking philosophy, very long time ago, Western needs existence of the God.
right.
And Descartes said, I think, therefore I am.
Yes.
And finally, Zarathustra said, God
Who,
is
who,
dead.
who?
Zarathustra. Zarathustra, how to say? How to pronounce?
Who said Schopenhauer said God is dead?
This Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer said God is dead. This now God and one person is has a connection directly, and there's not necessary to, for example, church and everything is profitable organization like a church. Europeans say that his thinking think of the God directly connection to God is very important. Not necessarily church. This is my impression of the Western thinking is flow.
Well, so I wish you were right, but unfortunately,
Unfortunately,
the churches did a very good job
Sure.
in convincing their followers.
Divide the tax.
Oh, yeah, I mean, their existence
Yeah.
much relied on the fact that they were true to their church, because, I mean, basically their God was superior to other gods.
But therefore, if a church has a big mission, therefore church should be a NGO.
So, therefore,
But Middle Western Europe, church get a big interest from the many people.
right, but they are an NGO. They don't have to pay tax.
yeah.
They are an NGO. They are.
Even if the king of the England to escape the tax, he builds his own church.
Yeah. To nationalize all the land, etc. So he basically abolished the Catholic Church, and thereby freeing up all the land and
This is my impression, and I couldn't get his idea of this in my stories.
I think he's very much he's trying to introduce the idea of Buddhism and presence
Now.
and being in the now, and I think he's very much inspired by Nishida in his teachings.
He?
Yeah.
Could you explain me again what he's talking about? Ego?
Ego.
I don't understand.
Ego is everything that is not real. It's the world that you create, the values, the way that you see yourself in this world. It's how you identify yourself with your car, how you identify yourself with your job title, with your company, how you basically feel, how you derive your dignity. He says, well, of course, I mean, there are certain things that he can appreciate. Even a Ferrari, he gives in the example, it's a nice car, but it's your ego at work, because you identify with that car, so you are a Ferrari owner. But that doesn't mean anything about the essence of you. It just means that you own that car. There doesn't say anything about the essence of you. It's just a reflection of yourself and how you portray yourself to the outside world. It's not the essence of things. If you identify with your car, with your job, with everything else, these are sources of fear, of competition. Other people may have bigger cars. Other people may have a bigger job title, or they work for a bigger company. And reversely, other people, you might feel superior to other people because they have they don't have a car, or they don't have a fancy title. But what it does, it distorts the reality, because as a person, fundamentally, you are the same. But through your lens, through your ego, you are classifying the world. You are blurring the reality. This blurring disconnects you with the rest of the world, and it also disconnects you with your essence, because you are wasting your time trying to classify, measuring up against other people, while actually you're losing the touch with yourself. You don't have time to objectively just enjoy looking at the moon, for example, by not worrying about your job, or not that just being in the moment. People who have an ego, they derive the ego from their past, right? And they derive the ego also in the future. They are not present. And presence means completely rid of anything. So I'm just here. It doesn't matter how much money I have at the moment. When I'm looking at the moon, I don't worry about my job. I don't worry about my status. I don't worry about the money that I have. I'm here. If I'm not here, I start to worry about money. I start to worry about health. I start to worry about all kinds of things. It has nothing to do with being here now. If I am in the past, I'm thinking, I have built up so much money. I must be a great person. I'm not here. I'm actually living in the past. I do not have the attention, the nothingness, to be one with everything around me, because I'm distracted by my past. So past and future both distract from the now. The now gives you the power, the lack of worry, the lack of distortion, and gives you the absolute presence and attention to the world around you, and be one with everything that is around you.
Okay, that idea, I got that idea, and that is a base of the Heidegger.
Heidegger. Oh my goodness.
This thinking is a base of the Heidegger.
Really? I know the name Heidegger, but I don't know exactly who Heidegger was, to be honest with you. It could be, but I don't remember what Heidegger did or say. It's possible. They're both German.
Maybe we will discuss about Heidegger.
No. I didn't study philosophy.
But this, Uno-san, this must sound familiar, no? No?
Nothing at all.
Okay.
Well, familiar. I don't understand what it means. You don't know how to speak language.
Heidegger, you say?
But it's this expression of the Edison, I could get the idea.
I don't think it's a difficult concept.
Yeah.
The concept in itself is rather simple.
Get tired.
So, but this is the kind of Western interpretation of Eastern philosophy, but there is still an I in this philosophy. However, he says that actually when we identify the I, when we mistake the I for the I from that we have built up in the past, or the I that is worried about the future, we are mistaking the I with the true I.
True.
So that there is an I to the outside world, the ego, and there is an I inside, the essential you. And he says, okay, you need to try and get rid of the outside I in order to find your inside I. And if you find your inside I, you can be present, you can appreciate, and you can appreciate everything around you without having to measure yourself against others or be distracted by things that do not really matter for you, your true I. You are not the roles that you play. That's the message, I think. Ripopita?
Almost the same.
Almost the same.
Okay, let me.
Right. He's slowing.
And you may find that sometimes very creative people, there are some who have no ego about their creations. They do not derive their identity from what they create. Others have fairly big egos. That happens too. I believe the greatest creators in this world don't have an ego about that. Maybe they have it somewhere else, but not around that. And that sometimes means that they continue to be creative. So sometimes you see this modesty, which is lack of ego in people who have created something really great. Composers, poets, even some scientists like Einstein never developed an ego around what he came up with, the incredible realization about space and time. But he never developed this ego as I created that. There was relatively little conceptual self. And he found it absurd that he had become one of the most famous people on the planet, even in his lifetime. He just couldn't, it's so weird. And he talked about the gap between what people think of me and who I am is just incredible. And by the way, that's the last thing, that's also the place where you can manifest out of the power of presence. If you're linked into that presence, see what the universe wants to, because that presence is the presence of consciousness. Does it want to create something through you? Perhaps it does. But in that presence, everything is already present in an undifferentiated state. So whatever it is that you create externally is like the diluted form of something that in its essence, its concentrated non-form is already there in you. So whatever you can possibly create is already present on some level, on a deeper level. There have been composers who created the most incredible pieces of music, and many of them said that they listened as if it came out of that place of depth already fully created, and they just wrote it down.
So finish. How difficult. What does he mean? Composers? Why?
So basically,
He just makes
so basically what he's he first example was about Einstein. So what people think of me, the difference of what people are thinking of me and who I am is incredible. What he's saying is that who I really am, the essential me, is so much more modest, so much more insignificant than what people think of me. People think of me as this Superman who invented very important theories about space and time, but that's not who I am. I am not a great person. I just happen to convey these things. I happen to convey these things is also what he uses in the example of the composer, for example. The composer, truly great composers and creative composers, they do not see themselves as the inventor of that music. They hear that music somehow in their soul. They feel that their creation is more or less a diluted presence, as he says. So the diluted impression of what is inside them. They hear that music and they just write it down because it's kind of given to them. It's not really something that they had worked very hard on to come up with. It's something that they heard and they just had to write it down. That's just it. That was their role in creating that music. Now, Einstein had that same thing in his relativity theory. So it's not the ego. Some people identify with their achievements, with the theory of relativity, the music that they have composed, and other people, they take more distance of the things that they produced and the people who they are, and thereby remaining much more modest and much closer to themselves, developing less of an ego.
Sort of God doing something.
Right. So basically God gave them this music. It was just given to them on a higher level. They didn't make it. It was more or less given to them, and they were the vehicle. It was like the apostles who wrote the Bible. The words were not written by them. They were handed to them, and they used. They heard those words and they wrote them down in the Bible. The composer heard the music. Einstein, well, basically he just observed, or he grasped the ideas that were out there, given to him.
Mm. Okay, so from front to end, what is his message?
His message is that we should not be. We should try to find our.
He's talking about supernatural issues?
No, he's talking about actually stripping yourself of your ego. About an ego that's built up of things that happened in the past, things that the roles that you play, the things that you own. The way that people see you, it's not real. Those are just roles. So people identify. So I am the CFO of this company. That means that's who I am. No, that's not who you are. That's the role you play. So he says, become aware of the fact that you are playing roles, and these roles are not your true selves. Actually, these roles prevent you from being present, because these roles are derived from your past, and it will also and if you are not present, you have anxieties about the future. You live on things that you did in the past, and they distract from who you are. And the only thing that what you are is actually the person who is here right now, who's observing. If you are true to yourself, you don't have any filters. Not by your status, not by how you perceive other people, their positions, their money, their success. If you're here in the presence, you see things as how they truly are. The moon.
This is not easy for understanding, right?
It's not easy to understand, but the concept in itself is very simple, I think. The concept is basically there's a separation between who you really are and your ego, and a lot of people make the mistake that they are the roles that they play. They identify themselves with the role that they play, that the position that they hold, the money that they have. That's not who you are. You are something much deeper than that.
That portion I don't understand. Position. Why is separated from position and he himself?
But that's exactly the same thing as Confucius is saying. You should not be distracted by ego, by money, by status, and things like that. That's exactly the same thing.
He said Ferrari, right?
Right.
Why he said Ferrari?
Why he said Ferrari? Oh, well, so a lot of people, when they see a Ferrari, they feel their ego starts to criticize the Ferrari. Because they feel somehow smaller, because that person is capable of driving such a beautiful machine, and in red nonetheless. So that is really an ego enhancer, and other people cannot enjoy that because they feel, so somehow they feel smaller because of other people can drive a Ferrari. But you say if you are not identifying with your ego, if you are just objectively observing that machine, you can see that it's really a beautiful machine. You can enjoy it. You don't feel smaller because of it. You just feel, oh, that's a beautiful machine, and I can appreciate its forms and the technology behind it and everything else without having to compete. So if you are not identifying with your ego, you can be much more appreciative of your environment. You can be much more at peace with everything around you. If you're present, you don't have to worry. You're not worrying about the future. You don't regret the past. You're present. You're here. You can be much more appreciative, much more observative, because you're not distracted. You're here. You can be much more focused on the here and now, and therefore you can be much happier.
Okay, let's move. It's difficult.
Do you mind if I get a little coffee?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right? Kimoto-san, coffee?
I would love to have coffee.
Hot or cold?
Cold.
Cold. Unu-san wa?
Hot coffee.
Hot? Freshly brewed, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still sleeping. Evening. Kimoto, わかった?
Okay, I'm right back.
わかんない。難しい。この人難しい。これなんていう人なの？エクハート・トーレ。エクハート・トーレ。あー、眠かった。エクハート・トーレ。 違うな。これかな。ユニオンじゃないな。あったあった。これだ。悟りを開くと人生はシンプルだから。今瞬間が来るとかいうことを忘れたけど。今、私は、こういうやつだ、やっぱり。これはなんか日本語で書いてないかな。あったあった。はい、アワードに飛んでちゃったね。カウントと、でもよくこんなの探してきたな。
ね。
高橋まだいるの？なんかいるみたい。
います。
いるの？すごいね。
今、荷物が出て、ぐるぐる回ってるところを上から見てるんですけど、
もう、
荷物がどっか。
家族がいるやつ
そうです。
もうついてるね。
あ、空港なんですね。
そうそうそう。
空港で、荷物が出てくるところを上から見てるんですけど。
もう奥さんと会ったのも。
今、上から見てます。なんか誰か間違って乗ってたかもしれないです。ないですね。
これ難しいんだよ、木本。ここ日本語読んだってわかんないもんね。
私もずっと聞いてました。
そう、お前わかった？俺全然わかんないよ、彼言っても。眠くなっちゃったら今ドリンク飲んで。エッグハルトってなんだろう、こいつ。これ今わかんない。エッグハルトトールっていうのをね、彼が説明したんだけど、全然わかんない。こいつオランダ人だよ。だから知ってんだ。やっぱりわかんないよ、木本、こいつの言ってんの。あなたは目覚めてきます。全然目覚めないよ。眠くなっちゃうよ、これ。
今ここにっていうところに集中することが、あなたは悟り開くことにつながるってことじゃないですか。
欧米でベストセラーだって。今だけを生きよう。これ、木本が言ったやつの。これだよ、野球の打席に入った。球が見える。音楽がどう弾いたのか覚えてないけど、すごくよく弾けた時とも考え。でも大事なのは思考ではない。本当にその通り。なんだろうね。わかんねえよ。 この人光沢ない。わかんないな。
The coffee machine always is not functioning there. It's unbelievable. It never works.
Never works. Wow.
Oh, it's terrible.
You like it?
Oh, so, well, actually, I had to fix it because nobody knows how to do it. 木本さん、どっちがいい?
Mm-hmm. Say black.
Almost, both black.
Both black.
Yeah, so I think this is black, yeah?
I prefer it.
And,
どうぞ.
and Eckhart Tolle is Dutch.
What? No, German, no?
No, Dutch.
Dutch, he has a very strong German accent. He's Dutch?
No, he's Dutch.
Really?
Yeah, Tolle is Dutch. And his saying is not easy.
Hey? Tolle is Dutch?
Dutch.
I cannot believe that, Uno-san.
No, Eckhart Tolle is Dutch.
Really?
Yes, that's the reason why I thought you know him. This.
でもこの名前ってドイツ語の名前だって、ドイツの名前ってね。
It's very German.
This one, no, Eckhart Tolle.
He's a German-born resident of Canada.
Canada.
No,
He's a-
Dutch.
Well, Uno-san.
Yeah, that's one. That's,
His accent is so German that I can't believe it. It's almost a joke.
I'm not writing down Dutch.
Dutch? No, he's not Dutch. That there is no way that he can be Dutch.
But he's not easy person.
No, not easy.
So I don't understand.
ヒロさん、ハイデッカwrite one book named Sein und Zeit.
Yeah,
Sein und Zeit. Oh.
Okay, he is living in Dutch.
Living in Dutch.
Living in
Really?
Dutch, yes.
Oh, it says here that he lives in Canada, but
Eckhart Tolle he is living in Dutch.
it says really he lives in Canada, but okay.
Oh, he lives in
Maybe he
Dutch.
moved.
But just read Japanese, but I don't understand. He's not easy person.
Maybe if you read this book, then you will understand. It's not
No,
that.
I don't have time to read. But,
I think he's discussing about being. Zai.
Being in time. Heidegger.
Therefore, I think it looks like Heidegger.
I don't actually. I only know the name.
Yeah.
I don't know Heidegger.
Zai means Zai.
that's the reason why I don't understand. It's not easy. I don't understand. Is what is his meaning. Just only below you shall. Just the power of now is he wrote the book. The name
Yes.
of this.
Yeah.
Huh?
I read it.
You read it?
So I would never have picked up that book if it wasn't for the person who gave it to me. Kind of like, okay, I will give it a try. Don't worry, it was good. I thought it was good. It's actually just very simply put, and don't mistake yourself with your ego. That's that's all, actually. So don't go for status or ego, or don't get angry with your wife because she took your toy or something like that.
What do you mean? Don't get angry.
Well, when your wife says something that you disagree with, you should not say anything. Go to bed. That is basically, I mean, why would you actually get angry for other reasons than you feel that she is challenging you, your ego?
My ego, what?
Right. So basically, let's give an example. I mean, I don't say this is just a stupid example, but if your wife says to you like, "I will not make you dinner," you can get angry. Why? Because you feel like you're my wife. You should cook me dinner, and I deserve that because I'm your husband. That is actually when you identify with your ego. But taken one step back, you say, okay, well, basically she doesn't want to cook me dinner. But there's no problem because I can go to a restaurant, I can buy my own food. There's not really a problem. But that is after you actually looked past your ego, because you say, I deserve food because I'm your husband. I deserve you to make that. I deserve that you actually put effort into making food because of me. I deserve that effort because I provide you with the house and whatever. That is your ego is reasoning, not yourself.
Ego is really not yourself.
All right.
Ego.
Because you believe in your role. You
By the
believe
way,
as your
by the way,
husband.
Confucius said, never kind of mental attitude should not move like that. Wife said, I don't prepare dinner tonight. Confucius said, okay, you cultivate yourself. Cultivate yourself. Your mind never should not move. Okay, you don't need to. This is a Confucius message. But by the way, what is the ego? Wife should make dinner.
So ego is you identify with your role as her husband. Therefore, you say, as your husband, and as your husband, I gave you this, I do that, I do this. Therefore, I deserve that you pay me back by making me dinner.
Wait a minute, this kind of thought we don't have in the Confucius. Confucianism, okay. Because I prepare your, like I give money or house. It never says that. Okay?
So basically, Confucianism says that you should not do that because you
It
should
means
not buy into your ego.
Confucianism is no ego.
Confucianism preaches that you do not give into your ego, but Confucianism also says you should not worry about your status and your pride. Those are distractions.
What I don't understand means, I think you're talking about this is okay. Like if she's going to speak out, she don't want to make dinner.
Right.
My mind never moves.
Okay. But usually, instinctively, if you would think with your ego, you would think.
It means I don't have ego.
Yes.
I don't have ego.
Right.
So what he said.
What he says, you should not have an ego because.
You should have ego.
Yes.
Okay. This is Confucianism.
Yes, because if people start to identify with their role as husband, they might be upset because in their role as husband, the wife should provide for food, as the husband should provide for income or things like that. So they could get angry as the rule. But you are not a husband. You are just you, and she's just she, and you cannot derive any rights from that. So basically just be in the moment and say, well, I'm not thinking as a husband here. I'm not thinking as a role. Okay, you don't want to make food. I hear that. I will buy my own food. Yeah.
This is what he said. But this guy is very, but this Japanese narrative say he's not spiritual person, but looks like spiritual.
Right, but yeah, he looks like a super nerd, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he is.
So I don't very difficult to understand what he's talking. Almost for sleep.
Well, I think he's an interesting figure because he's kind of like coming very close to Eastern philosophy.
Really? それ慣れないって難しいよ食べるの。えと問題ないって言うけど、I have problem to smell. Smell.
It's not so.
Pepper is no problem, but
It's good with
eating
soju.
itself is no problem. But smell,
No problem.
Chinese smell,
Yes.
you can eat. 珍しいよ。He's usually he never eats this.
Because I love
They
mutton and shansai.
Mutton?
Mutton. I love
Like sheep?
sheep.
チャック閉めた？
しまった。匂いがするから嫌だ。
そう。smell. Japanese one I like it, but Chinese is Chinese oil. It's cheap oil smell.
あ、チープオイルね。
That's a problem. That makes it food really bad to eat.
Yeah.
Cheap oil. Oil is very, very important.
Okay,
Okay.
I understand your explanation, but content is so difficult for me.
Well, maybe it's easier for me it makes more sense because he's European. Kana. Okay. So we were talking about skepticism and Cartesian skepticism and theoretical philosophy. Next is empiricism, that is philosophy based on observation. It's the other school.
Who is this?
There we go. There's not only one person. Hello. Yes.
Maybe Takahashi is gone.
Probably. I think.
Can you look at this? Does this? Crash Course Philosophy is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace. Share your passion with the world.
By the time we're done today, I just might have you questioning whether this apple is real or not. Think I can't do it? Give me about 10 minutes, I might have you wondering whether I'm a physical object or not. And the same goes for all this stuff. And for your computer, and Nick behind the camera, and you. How? By unleashing the power of empiricism.
This is his brother. So, it is his brother. Hank Green. This is not John Green.
Last time we learned about
This is
17th
Hungary.
century philosopher René Descartes and how he upended the apple basket that was his entire personal belief system and descended into a radical skepticism, only to emerge with his conviction that cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. This one idea, the fact that he was thinking, or really the fact that he was doubting, allowed him to build back up, one by one, more beliefs that he thought he could rely on. But in the end, most of the beliefs that Descartes ended up putting back into his intellectual apple basket had to do with the immaterial world. Like, he decided that he could believe that he existed as a thinking thing, and he believed that God existed. Ultimately, he lit upon the idea that some of our thoughts are clear and distinct in a way that somehow guarantees their truth. But a lot of philosophers disagreed. They argued that thinking on its own wasn't enough. Like, just because you're thinking doesn't mean that your thoughts correspond to material reality in any reliable way. Basically, Descartes' philosophical opponents thought that the cogito was a dead end. So here we start to see a split between two different understandings of how we can most reliably get to the nature of reality, and therefore truth. Both were responses to the constant questioning that is skepticism. On the one hand, there was rationalism, and on the other, empiricism. Descartes, like Plato before him, was a lover of reason. He met skepticism with rationalism. He believed that the most real things in life were ideas, propositions that can be known through pure reason. Deductive truths, which we talked about before, fall into this category, and mathematical truths do too. But by contrast, empiricism is based on the principle that the most reliable source of knowledge isn't our ideas or our reasoning, but our senses. Sure, we can know things through deduction and basic logic, but what actually leads us to truth, or at least gives us our best shot at getting there, are things like induction and the scientific method, ways of thinking that tell us about the material world. Probably the most famous split among philosophers between these two camps was the lifelong debate between Plato and Aristotle. Plato was convinced that truth resided in the immaterial world of ideas, while Aristotle's attention was focused firmly on the ground. But what about in Descartes' day? If he was the original prototype of the navel-gazing philosopher, a living example of rationalist thinking, then his foil was the 17th century English thinker John Locke. This is where he was born. Locke believed that we are all born as tabula rasa, or a blank slate. He argued that all knowledge is obtained through experience. He rejected the concept of innate ideas, the view that we're born preloaded with certain information, like what's good versus what's bad, or what is the nature of God. Locke thought that we are born knowing nothing, and instead all of our knowledge comes to us through sense data. But one place where Locke agreed with Descartes was in the idea that just because your senses tell you something, that doesn't mean you can trust it. After all, sometimes your senses give you false information, like when you think you see or hear something that's just not there. Descartes' response to this, of course, was to just throw out all sense experience as an unreliable source of knowledge. But Locke didn't go that far. Instead, in order to figure out whether the senses accurately reflect the outside world, he introduced a distinction between what he called the primary and secondary qualities of all things. Primary qualities are qualities that physical objects themselves have. They're not in our minds, Locke argued. They're actually in the stuff. These primary qualities include things like solidity, the density, weight, and mass of an object, and also extension, the height, depth, and width that a certain thing has. He also included figure, or the shape of an object, as well as mobility, which is this, whether it's stationary or in motion. So primary qualities, Locke said, belong to the thing itself. Take this apple. It weighs maybe 150 grams, it's the size of my palm, roundish but firm with the slightest bit of give, and right now it's moving through the air. Those are its primary qualities. But it has secondary qualities too, and by Locke's standards they are not real, at least not in the objective, agreed-upon way. They're just in our minds, but they get there through the primary qualities. I'm talking about things like its color, taste, texture, smell, and sound. The secondary qualities of this apple are its redness, how it tastes and smells and feels on my tongue and hand, even how it sounds when I bite into it. Locke believed that the distinction between primary and secondary qualities explained the disagreements that we all have about our perceptions of the outside world. Like, we could measure this apple in a bunch of different ways and all agree on its primary qualities, but its secondary qualities would no doubt lead to some disputes. Like, is it really red? What kind of red exactly? Cardinal red or carmine red? It's kind of dark purple at the top, or is it just like a dark pink? What about the sound it made? Would I call that crunchy or crispy? Or I don't like that bitey? It's like apple sound. We could argue about that kind of stuff till the cows came home. But if we disagree about its primary qualities, one of us is simply wrong, because primary qualities have nothing to do with you or me. Instead, they have everything to do with the object itself. Locke's reasoning was simple, even elegant, extracting a lot of explanatory power out of very few basic concepts. As a result, it resonated with a lot of people, and one person it resonated strongly with was the Irish philosopher George Berkeley. He was moved by Locke's empiricism and took it seriously, so seriously in fact that he ended up using Locke's own logic against him. He basically took empiricism to its logical conclusion, dismantling the whole process of perception to the point that he had to wonder whether anything existed at all. Berkeley began by taking apart the distinction that Locke made between primary and secondary qualities. Like, think about this apple again. How do you know its shape? Locke said the apple's shape as a primary quality is immediately perceivable. But Berkeley pointed out that you don't perceive some qualities of an object while totally disregarding others. Like, you can't detect an apple's shape without first, or at least also detecting its color. When you think about it, you can't detect any of the primary qualities without also considering the secondary ones. You can't see a colorless apple. You can't feel a textureless apple. In fact, if you try to strip away the apple's secondary qualities in an effort to get at the primary ones, you end up with no apple at all. Try it. Close your eyes and imagine an apple made of only primary qualities. So it has a certain shape, a certain size, but it doesn't have any color or texture or taste. You can't do it. You try to imagine it with no color, but really you're probably imagining one that's either black or white or transparent, the color of what's behind it. And if you try to imagine it as having no texture, you'll find that there's still texture there. It's just smooth. Remember, Locke asserted that secondary qualities are not objectively real. They can only be subjectively perceived. But now, Berkeley has shown that the two are inextricably linked. You can't have one without the other, which means that the primary qualities can't be real either. They too are just what your mind makes of things. So this led Berkeley to a startling conclusion. There's just no such thing as matter. There can't be. Instead, there's only perceptions. Berkeley's famous assertion, his version of cogito ergo sum, was esse est percipi. To be is to be perceived. In his opinion, there are no objects, only perceivers. And even then, the perceivers themselves don't really have any physical form. They're just disembodied minds, perceiving things that aren't really there. A little bit terrifying when you start thinking about it. In Berkeley's scenario, we're all set adrift in a world of nothing but thought. What's scary about this is that if everything's just perception, then when the perception goes away, there can't be anything left. So, like, please, for the love of Pete, do not turn away from your computer. If you stop perceiving me, I stop existing. But what if maybe you don't care about me? Still, you'd better not go to sleep, because as soon as you do, you'll cease to exist, because you won't be able to perceive yourself. The only guarantee that you'll continue to exist in your sleep is to have a friend watch you when you're sleeping, which probably is a non-starter for a number of reasons. But in any case, the second your friend blinks, you're gone. So in the end, Berkeley believed that there was only one thing that kept us and everything else from disappearing into oblivion: God. Berkeley believed that God was the ultimate perceiver. God is always watching with unblinking perception that holds objects in existence even when we're not paying attention. The tough thing about Berkeley is, we all pretty much think he has to be wrong. Very few of us are willing to give up our belief in the physical world, no matter who's watching. We are sensory animals. We really need this apple to exist. Next time, we're going to take a side journey into the world of knowledge, and then in episode 8, we'll see if Karl Popper can manage to get the physical world back for us. Today, we have learned about empiricism as a response to skepticism. We talked about John Locke and his distinction between primary and secondary qualities, and we've seen why...
So, empiricism. And actually, very important one, perception.
Empiricism. What does it mean?
Observation.
Observation.
Empirical studies are studies that study the world around us, the physical world around us.
What John Locke said. What does it mean?
John Locke says actually.
He said apple, right?
Yeah. So basically, what he says that we are all born with as a blank slate. All our knowledge is built up, but we're all born without any previous knowledge or anything. I think he also denied DNA and anything else. We are just a white sheet of paper, and our experience builds us as human beings. What he says that basically there are things that are around us, and they have two kinds of qualities: primary qualities and secondary qualities. The primary qualities are the things that are measurable, objectively measurable. So like the size, the weight, and then the secondary qualities are the taste, for example, and the color. The primary qualities, as I said, are measurable. The secondary qualities are not measurable, because how do you measure taste? How do you measure the exact color of red? They are perception. Basically, things are real if they have these primary qualities. Therefore, we know that they are real. Berkeley, on the other hand, says, well, actually, good luck in measuring these objective qualities, because we cannot observe an apple without also observing these secondary qualities of the apple. So the color and its taste. So he says, actually, primary and secondary qualities, they're both subjective. They're all perception. And actually, perception is a fundamental, like, if you want to understand Dutch culture, then you have to understand that we are very much a believer in this perception. Everything is perception. Means that everything is relative. There are no dogmatic truths. People perceive things in different ways. Everything is relative to the position from where you look at something. I think that in general in our culture we are strong believers of that. That you, in order to understand people, you need to understand their perception of the reality. There is no such thing as my reality is right or your reality is right. It's just a difference in perception. Perception, and Berkeley goes very far and tries to bring it to the extreme, as we do in Western philosophy, because basically he's following through his idea that everything is perception, and therefore without perception the world would not exist. Therefore the world only exists through perception. How come that is a constant? Because God is watching us, and therefore is perceiving everything, is the great perceiver, therefore it exists. The empirical world. So the empiricists, they different from the likes of Descartes and Plato. They are they believe in the material world. They believe that the things around us, like Locke says, okay, well, basically what Descartes is saying, like, okay, I think, therefore I am, is not a justified conclusion, because what you are observing, what you are thinking, could actually relate to immaterial matter. Therefore, we do not really know that the conclusion of I think, therefore I am is not justified. Does not say that there is a reality and that you actually exist, because your thoughts could actually relate to immaterial matter. So still nothing could exist. Therefore they believe in the senses, and they say, okay, we should find the reality in the world around us. And Locke says, okay, well, we do that through the distinction between primary and secondary qualities. And others say, well, there is no way that you can separate the two. They're always interlinked. Therefore everything is perception. Everything is relative. Everything is relative to where you stand. And this is a very Western anti-dogmatic way of perceiving the world, as saying, okay, that there is no such thing as the hard truth because it all depends on how you look at certain things.
But, Locke, he said first and second something. Why he says like that?
Because to know that something exists, you can objectively observe that through the primary qualities. You can talk very long about the secondary qualities, but you cannot disagree on that. But the things that do exist, the things that are true, the things that actually we can agree on can be measured by its primary qualities. Because the apple has this texture, the apple has this this weight, this diameter, or whatever. What we can objectively measure, if we can measure it, that proves that it exists. So we can argue about the secondary qualities, but through its primary qualities we can establish that something exists and therefore it's real. So we don't need to go back all the way to I think therefore I am, because actually that is something that can be contested, because what I'm thinking could not relate to an actual world. Could be just thinking about a completely abstract world. Therefore, maybe the fact that I'm thinking and therefore I am may actually not relate to a physical world at all. A physical world should not be established through pure thought, should be established through observation and through measuring things, the primary qualities of the things around us. So again, this is very fundamental, goes very back to the essence and tries to say, okay, so how do we know what is real, what exists? Okay, this is easier, right?
But why? But my question is, why they are thinking about that kind of empiricism? Why they do?
To answer a very big question, this is like philosophy is a big question, because you want to get to the essence, to the core of things, and if you want to do that, you need to know how to measure, how to judge whether something is real. It's very fundamental. It's like, okay, trying to discover what the universe is like, and finding truth about matter and gravity and just so I think it's a mission of people to understand the world around us, and that's what these philosophers are doing. Trying to.
For me, it looks like useless, right?
Well, that's what a father would say to his son when he tells him that he wants to study philosophy in university. I'm not going to pay your tuition fee if you're going to study. If your son says, "I want to become a philosopher," he says, "Okay, then you pay your own tuition fee, because that's a waste of time."
But philosophical, thinking is very important.
But actually, it's very so. What this brings me to a
okay, philosophical thinking. How important is we can get perspective, insight.
Right.
But what kind of impact is these guys talking about?
So basically, what these guys are doing, and what we are talking about, what we see here is the fun. We are talking really fundamentals. When you're saying, for example, okay, I think therefore I am. So why is this Descartes become such an important person? It's not so much. So the practical application of Descartes is not defined by the I think therefore I am. The I think therefore I am is just the fundamental principle based on which he describes the way the world and what we can know about the world and what we can be certain of things that we cannot be certain of. And he's trying to answer a very important question. For example, does God exist? Yes or no? Do I exist? Yes or no? Those are very fundamental things. But it's not like in Eastern philosophy, for example, how should I live? And what things should I do? What shouldn't I do? Those are more moral theories, and that's only 1/3 of the philosophy.
Why Locke, what about Locke is beneficial for us, for human being?
Well, Locke in itself tries to classify away and say, okay, what is real? What is reality? What exists? It's a big question. It's just as a big question as, for example, how does gravity work, or what is the value of that? Well, it's very important that we understand the principles of gravity, because based on that we can build airplanes and whatever. So these philosophical questions also can help us to understand the world around us, and thereby better build a better life. So these are the foundational principles of how we build our the perception of our world view. So it can help us to create a logical framework, a better understanding of how the world works, even how people perceive the world, or based on which kind of philosophical idea they perceive the world. So by understanding Eastern philosophy versus Western philosophy, by understanding the difference between empirical philosophy and theoretical philosophy, we can better understand how people think and how they will derive to certain conclusions. So that will help us to build bridges between people from different backgrounds, who have a different perception of the world. Because if you want to create understanding, if you want to build bridges between cultures, for example, then you need to kind of understand what those people's reality looks like and how things connect together, in order to create a common ground between the two of you.
Common ground. It means deeper thinking, huh, for the aspect of everything.
Right. Very fundamental. Very fundamental. And these guys, they didn't stop thinking by, okay, I think therefore am and Feierabend, and it's holiday time. No, that was just the starting point of their idea. That based on those principles, they build up entire worldview and described how the world functions, and what we can be certain of, and what things are questionable, and what kind of how we should measure things in order to establish whether they exist or not, whether we can be certain of their existence. So it's like with every science, we're trying to understand the world around us. Which is a valid pursuit in itself. I think that's also what you're trying to do when you're writing books. You're trying to grasp the essence of things and present them in a way that they're understandable, that become a theoretical framework. Your books will never capture every individual life of the country or the democracy that you're describing, but it will create a general idea, a general guideline to better understanding that country, for example. Philosophy is the same way. It creates an abstraction, a framework to better understand how the reality works.
So studying philosophy is popular in Europe? No.
well, at least I don't know anybody who studies philosophy. But so in my world, no. But of course, there are people who study philosophy.
Founder of Teijin, he said, studying philosophy is most important rather than finance and so forth. Philosophy is most important because whenever he wants to study philosophy, he can get perspective and insight of the world. But what kind of impact come from Locke and Berkeley like this? This is what I don't understand. Empiricism is what kind of impact to understand global perspective? What kind?
Well, basically, their school of thoughts will, and their followers will grade their worldview, the way that they believe that the world functions, based on observation by measuring primary qualities, and when they can establish that these primary qualities exist, they agree that according to the rules laid out by Locke, that thing actually does exist or does not exist. They define the rules of the game, and then other people play the game and try to fill and create a world by observing those rules. And other people create different schools and create different rules against which we measure the reality and the way the world works.
Maybe your explanation for Locke, he pick up apple, but he pick up many kind of the other things.
Right, sure, of course.
So I think some example, maybe more vivid image I can get from apple is I have nothing from it, but maybe the other example, maybe some more kind of like political issues or economic issues. Maybe I got something from him.
Okay, but this is interesting because I think now you are looking for a kind of philosophy that is more in line with Confucian philosophy. Right. But that's not Western philosophy. Western philosophy doesn't work that way. Western philosophy is not a path. Western religion is a path. Religion describes us how we should live our lives and what we should do. Western philosophy doesn't do that. Western philosophy tries to find the truth, the essence of things. They love wisdom, the love of wisdom. They are looking for the essence of being. Of course, there is also a stream like the Aristotelian school that is more focusing on these kinds of ethical ground rules. Plato in his what's it called, the Republic, is also focusing more on how we should organize things. But a lot of these other philosophers and schools of thoughts are really trying to find the essential rules, define the essential rules against which we can measure our reality, the way that we exist, not trying to describe how we should organize the state or how we should treat our wives or how we should live in order to come closer to the truth. Like Eckhart Tolle is more of a philosopher in your school of thought. Locke is not. Locke is a philosopher who tries to describe the rules of the game.
So when I was a student, I studied philosophy. I forget the name of that. It's still I memorize one word. Is one of each things is very good thing. Okay, one of each thing is very good. But all things is moving toward devil. But each of those good things. But all the totally is moving toward devil. Who said that? But this is very good, impression for me. like this is, for example, part of those is very good thing. It's a kind of capitalism or it's kind of for the democracy, but every part is very good thing. But if you consider in totally, it's moving toward devil. Who said that? This is philosopher. This is very good impression for me.
I don't know.
Sort of thing, sort of things. I think, just...
But I think you will find more answers in religion than in Western philosophy.
Of course, a religion, Nishida is a religion, Buddhist, right? But he is a Buddhist, Zen. He tried to organize, westernize, right? So he just established his own philosophy. But what he's talking about is very understandable. Former guys might be the same. But this why Locke is what he tried to deliver for me. Apple is that maybe Apple is therapy. Okay, we're going to change observation aspect. Word we're going to change. This might be understandable, right?
Because you saw.
You see this side, but the other side, but the impression is completely different. Right? Like if you're going to consider to apply adopting for Locke, we try to analyze for the Mr. Trump. This side is wicked man, okay? But the other side, he's a revolutionist. The other side is wicked man. The other side is revolutionist. Depending on what kind of aspect you're going to observe, maybe this is true.
So it's perception.
Is it Locke?
No. Actually, that's not Locke. That's Berkeley.
Berkeley? This kind of explanation is understandable. So always you need to consider for how you're going to observe this fact. Okay? Depending on you observe fact, result will be different.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact, your example about the Nikkei newspaper about the elephant's foot.
Yeah.
So it's a fact. I mean, it's not a lie. That's a fact, but it doesn't describe the elephant.
Apple is red. Oh, of course, red.
Yeah.
But this is not all.
Right. Doesn't say anything about the taste, about other dimensions. It's a matter of how you perceive the apple.
Good example, Trump. Nobody is thinking about he's a revolutionist. Okay, many people thinking about he's a wicked man. Not so many, right? He liar. Okay, everybody agrees with
Everybody agrees that he's a liar.
But he's a wicked man. Not everyone. But he is a real wicked man. Okay, he just only chasing money. Or his own chasing money.
And his ego.
But not everybody recognizes
what he's doing in Turkey right now. That's definitely just because Erdogan is.
Erdogan? Erdogan is he is a dictatorship. Okay, different the type of Trump. Erdogan dictatorship. Exactly, he tried to own the right. Okay, own the right, authorized right. And against him, okay, kill them all. This kind of person. Trump is different. He is a wicked man. Just not dictatorship. He just want his own money, his own fame. Okay, he don't think about what's going on in America. He don't care. But his point is the revolutionist. Okay, discard WTO, discard the TPP, discard everything, scratch out world order.
After.
Right? NAFTA. He want to make new world. But he
UN?
No. UN, of course. He doesn't have new world image. He doesn't have new world order. So this means America I think Berkeley, I understand maybe if he's going to show something.
Well, but it's important to understand that Berkeley, the ideas come from Locke, come from the primary and secondary qualities, and that that differentiation and understanding that the differentiation between primary and secondary cannot be made clearly because you cannot observe the primary qualities without the secondary qualities. Therefore, everything is relative. There's no such thing as an objective truth. There's only perception.
So what he said, he's just observed both sides.
So he says, okay, but you cannot see things. You cannot isolate certain elements of a material thing, because they depend on perception of what you see, what you measure. Secondary qualities are correlated with primary qualities, so you cannot see them by themselves. Therefore, reality is perception, is what we choose to see, from which angle we were trying to look at it. The villain or the revolutionary.
So
they are two perceptions. That depends on how you look at it. It depends on whether you are an American voter from the Midwest who lost his job because of outsourcing to Mexico.
Okay. If so, I understand. And always, yesterday's presentation, I told the audience, Saudi Arabia and ISIL, two of those common ground is what means Wahhab of Islam. Wahhab section of Islam. Wahhabi. Same. But what's the difference is only one difference. Saudi Arabia, they have country. Right? They have their own country. ISIL, they don't have it. Right? But any other things is completely exactly the same what they have done. Beheading, Saudi Arabia, they are doing beheading. Stoning, okay, they are doing stoning. Exactly same. The content of doing is terror. Okay, the other one side, they are terrorist organization. The other side, normal country. But same.
Yeah, terrorist organization.
But many people misunderstand. Okay, Apple. Okay, one aspect they can only observe. ISIL is ISIL.
It's a state.
Saudi Arabia. No, this is different.
A caliphate.
This is different. Caliphate is Saudi Arabia same, but you must be careful observe the fact. It's the same.
Right. So you can always select. Yeah. So that's actually perception. You can always cherry pick facts and not. If you want to understand the truth, you will have to change your perception and change your perception to get a better understanding of what is the reality. He's not here today, but I think that it's very important to understand the concept of perception.
Recently, I don't have a chance to discuss about Trump. But I, by myself, personally try to analyze who he is. Then my answer is he's a wicked man, villain. He's exactly villain. But also he's a global revolutionary. Two aspects he has. Right? But nobody's saying like that. Nobody. Because they don't have right observation for the fact.
Right. So people
they follow on their common sense.
Yes, a lot of people they look from their perception and they don't change their perception to get a better understanding of the truth. They only want to see a one-dimensional. So truth is a Trump is a multi-dimensional figure. You can look at him from the very different aspects. From his personal character, but also as a leader, his policies, his leadership, his all kinds of qualities. You can look at it. You can look at it as an American voter, or as a Mexican citizen, or as a European citizen. They all have their perception of the truth, and it's all the same person. But it's the perception defines how you see this person. So it's the same, I think, with everywhere in the world, and also in Japan, I think there is a tendency to just have one perception of the truth, whether it's fact or not. It's no such thing as a universal fact. That's just looking at it from one angle. That is completely ignoring the perceptions that exist about certain facts. A fact, for example, about comfort women, a fact about Koreans within Japan. If you look at your facts and put them together and try to make them into your model, you're completely ignoring the fact that you exclude other facts, you exclude other perceptions, and therefore you can never be too sure about what is reality and what is not. So I believe very strong in the quality of being able to having different perceptions and understanding that your view could easily be and justifiably be challenged because of other perceptions and other angles. And if you refuse to do that, if you refuse to change angles, if you refuse to actually put yourself in the shoes of other people and try to see their side of the reality, then you will be in the dark. You will not be able to build bridges and create common ground, and you will be isolated.
Exactly. The problem is, as you said, a comfort woman, and I wrote a book of comfort woman, but probably many people misunderstand my description, right? Because first of all, they have already their own golden rule, okay? Golden rule is some
right. Their concept of the world.
Yeah.
So what happens?
Yeah. If I want to going to change their thinking approach, okay, this is different. But Japanese cannot change their mind, or Westerners also they can change their mind. Chinese, of course, Korean they can change their mind. So they three peoples their own aspect they have. Right. But what I'm explaining is different, right? True story. But three of those people they don't understand my intention, right? And so I try to rewrite book again, try to persuade at least Westerners for them to understand what is the true fact. Okay, and so at this point is so far. Beforehand, I'm recognizing, try to persuade for Westerners. My book, okay, not Korean, not Japanese, Westerners, and they try to change. We should apologize. This is the true story. This is tell a lie. So those things, sorting out. But I think. First of all, this book is not persuasive for Japanese people. I rewrite the book for persuading Japanese people.
But you cannot. This is the same thing that you cannot tell a reformed like Protestant that the Bible doesn't write the truth. I mean that's just outside of their belief system. It's just that completely defines the concept of how the world exists. So about reality, that's the fundamental, that's the core concept of their being and how they see the world. It's very difficult to persuade people to actually accept the fact that their world doesn't exist. That's almost impossible. Because that's their perception of the reality. Now, the only thing that you can do is show them that there are other perceptions.
Do you know that just in Protestant and the other side is Christianity?
Yeah, or
Catholic.
Catholic, yeah.
They have big battle at Ireland.
Oh, yeah.
North Ireland.
Yeah, Northern Ireland, yeah.
Ireland. whole way around their battle, kill
Right.
each other because
Right.
of Protestant
Right.
and Catholic.
The
Yeah.
IRA, the Irish Republican
Yeah,
Army.
they never, I just writing up already, but that kind of issue never compromise, never agreeable message. So this is, I understand what you mean. And this cannot be changed.
No.
Right?
No. The only thing is that the only thing you can try to do is try to persuade people that there are different views on the reality, and that people have different ideas, and based on those ideas have different perception of what the
So what
reality
now
is.
is what I understand is why I'm rewriting Comfort Woman book is I try to focus on Westerners, so they try to change their mind for Comfort Woman. But actually, Japanese people, they don't understand my message. If you're going to persuade Japanese people, I need to rewrite book for the other aspect of Japanese people. So for Korean people, it's different. Korean people is like a Protestant Catholic. This is mentally negative for Comfort Woman, story. So even if whatever I'm going to explain for them, they never understand.
Right.
They have a culture of Han. Han is grief of the world, right? Any kind of soul is their history. They very heavy grief against China, against Japan. They cannot be eliminated, whatever effort, making effort. And also Japan is invaded in Korea, 1910. So the country, they just still accumulating, angry against Japan.
Right.
So even if persuade Comfort Woman does exist or not exist, but never listen to us.
They feel they are entitled to their pain, and that's just it.
Right? So
And that is kind of understandable, because actually, if you look at it from their perception, okay, if we're talking about history and etc., it doesn't matter. The pain was real. The people who were involved, no matter how they got there, it doesn't matter. You need to acknowledge the fact that some people were here, and they were here against their will, no matter how they came here, and you cannot just define away our grief. It's also a different perception on reality, and I think that's also very valid.
so even in what kind of aspect we try to make an effort, this is useless.
Right.
And so this is one of my concerns.
Exactly. So imagine that your grandmother or something has been gone through this. You can never agree with the Japanese side of the reality. That's just impossible. It's just way much closer to your perception and the world that you live in and the world that you grew up in. You will never do that. You cannot even sell that to your own family. It's impossible.
This is my. So now I need to write down the Comfort Woman book, persuading for Japanese people. Okay, because I distributed my book to the foreign ministries, but they never understand what I mean. So it means I need to persuade Japanese people for true story, what's going on. Okay, none of those books exist. This means is this relating backwards of the aspect you need to observe? What kind of aspect?
So, from which angle? There are some facts. So, what are the facts? And then you can create your own narrative.
And extending more, what current? I just told to him, Kimoto, what I'm also thinking about. I try to organize periodical seminar for how to get acquaintance with wife and woman. Because recent people, middle-aged, young people, whoever, they do not know how to handle women. Right? They do not, or girlfriend, whoever, they do not how to reach or how to communicate.
I think even women don't know.
So this is based on my experience for 70 years old, right? 70 years experience. So I need to, whole contribution for the world, you're going to have this aspect, okay? This is aspect. Apple is red.
Right.
No. If you see the apple is red, no, different color. Right? Yes, we have yellow. Yes, you are blue. But you don't understand. But you just change your mind. Okay? What he thinks. No, this is like Sun Tzu of Art of War. Do you know Sun Tzu?
Yes. Well,
Sun Tzu Art of War.
I read it, but
okay.
I can't say that I completely understand.
This is how to treat is strategy for the how to beat enemy, right? Just beat enemy is one thing is enemy is always moving, right? Moving.
Right.
So you try to do the straight attack, but also you try to doing for the not direct attack, indirect attack, right? Like any kind conceived way, any kind of type of way, you need to try to do that. Otherwise, you cannot get win. Same, but you must be careful. They are not always move. They are always moving around. Okay, don't stop, never stop. And in the consider for the this is aspect. Okay, apple, yellow, blue, and she is instinctive, or she is some cases rational, instinctive, rational. Instinctive, rational, always moving left to right. Okay? You never knows. You never throw the ball or throw the word for them. Then you can get it. She's too much instinctive or too much rational. So then you take action to recognize where they are. This is we have many kind of aspects human has. Do you understand? So, but many people they do not understand. Also, why I wanted to teach them because so kind of many aspects, but men should not move your mind. The counterpart moving mind, if you're going to move in mind, it's impossible to get to know each other. She's moving instinctive rational, man is moving instinctive rational. How are you going to get matching? If your mind should stop. She's always moving around, right? Then you're going to throw the ball and they got, oh, she's this position that she is. This currently she is. So then what kind of action you should going to take? So your mind just all Chinese say you should mind never move.
I see.
So I'm thinking about I try to like a Monday night or this is actually Wednesday night, Saturday, right? Maybe I'm available Monday night. Maybe I'm going to open the course for that. But my question is, many people is thinking about can be sure or not. My wife said, "Oh, are you crazy?" She said.
Didn't you know?
So this is, I think, one of my heavy experience area, right?
So are people thinking about that?
But actually, this is Berkeley is thinking. Okay, this is secondary and primary quality, third quality, fourth quality, many kind. And woman has a lot of qualities, but almost all men they does not know who they are. I know that. How do you think?
So, well, there's the one risk that basically people are so stuck in their own ideas that they never question themselves. I mean, you have to go pretty far. Actually, it's also a discussion about ego.
Oh, ego.
Right.
So, what about my opinion is ego. You should not eliminate your ego, otherwise you never understand ego. No, you told me dinner, right? My wife is don't prepare dinner.
Right.
It's okay, no problem.
Right. But that means eliminating your ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eliminate ego.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is very important.
Yeah,
issue.
so if you identify with your position and your position, that's your own concept in your mind, and you feel as your husband or as your president or
Yesterday
as,
at the morning, after my speech, and also we had a coffee break, 30 minutes or 40 minutes, and then they asked many questions. I told them this is kind of sort of things, but they are very much interested. Maybe they don't know. Just discard your ego.
Right.
Maybe they don't know.
Mm.
Patient, they don't know. And get problem in your wife, they don't know how to do it. And always they have quarrel and strife.
Right.
No, you don't need to do that.
So you get these patterns, right?
Yeah,
Self-enforcing,
yeah.
self-enforces, and that becomes like
Takashi
a
always
habit.
has problem with wife. With he and wife, he doesn't meet with her so many times because he's in Vietnam, wife is in Tokyo, so he's going to get together. They start to strive.
Right.
You don't know. I told him already must be patient.
You think you're not married to my wife.
but my simple question is, if I'm going to, I'm going to start kind of sort of things, but how people are interested in it, they are not concerned about that.
Well, basically,
How about the European people?
throw the ball. Try it once. Make a test lesson and see how many people are interested in it.
Yeah, before that, I need to very carefully try to prepare title.
Yeah.
Okay, and like I don't use
Just like gravity.
I don't like to use kind of how to persuade. No, kind of word. Okay, but too soft, nobody can. Like how to better communication, no, nobody can.
No.
It's,
How about win back your wife or something like that?
win back.
Win back your wife.
But many people don't think this communication with their wife.
Oh, okay.
Man is too much selfish, but he believe her.
Oh.
Right? But actually, wife never thinking about that. He's planning to divorce with him after he retired. Many people. But husband never thinking about that. He believe her. Even if he's so arrogant. But he's arrogant. But woman is follow him because of money.
Right.
But in tell the truth, her mind, Sand Beach kind of sort of she has. Right? So, I don't know what is the key message. Depending on how to send the message. But I wrote my book is this is how to doing well with his wife. Right? But nobody buy it because of this is very difficult book based upon Confucius. But recently I thinking about that Confucius in how to doing well with his wife, the same message. Why? Confucius saying, I studied a lot again. Then this week, whole week I wrote a book for Waseda University. I recognize is most important is cultivate self. Cultivate self means how to communicate with your wife. Okay, wife complain you. Okay, my case is always, okay, what's wrong for me? I will collect. Okay, I will collect what you said. Correct what you said.
So.
How do you think?
Not easy.
How about how do you do well with your wife?
Not really.
This is my question. Okay, I decide to do that. Okay, Monday night, maybe Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. Wednesday, Saturday, no, it's impossible. Monday, Wednesday, Saturday.
So, but who will come then?
But I just I'm worried about maybe none of them will come. But my
maybe they don't want to be seen. Maybe it has to be online only.
Online only. Then don't we see who
Right.
who
Who joins?
Skype
Oh,
or Skype or something.
Skype or Hangout or something like that.
Maybe you're right. Recent younger people is many people. Okay, this week another party I joined, but UN, some working for UN. This senior lady told me her daughter they don't have a boyfriend. I asked her why, because a recent young person never seduce their daughters. They don't know how to do it, how to handle it.
Right,
And, she asked me, Clyde, why don't you do that? Do something for seminar doing that.
Right.
And to encourage younger people to how to persuade women.
Right.
She told me, oh, really? She said, yes. This is my concern. But my wife told me, oh, son of a bitch, she said. Because the reason is very simple. The younger people, they don't have money, If they have money, okay, they're easy to pay money for any type of woman, they can get it. But they don't have money, so they can't get it, she said. The woman is moving just only money, she said, my wife. But I don't have money. But why not she's staying with me? But this is, I don't know, but she said that.
It's only money? I don't know. Well, I don't know if that's the only
So I think what I'm worrying is they don't come to the seminar because they don't want to reveal the current fact.
Right.
Okay, I tell you,
Ego.
Ego. 20 years ago, when I was 50.
So actually, that's a very good start, because if people come, that already means that they are willing to give up their ego and are willing to actually improve themselves and actually be much better to actually get along with their wives. So people who do come are already one step on their way to actually already achieving their objectives. So that's actually a very good way of actually getting people into your school, because if you come, you already made the first step. You haven't even though you haven't done anything yet.
Okay, I tell you one example. When I was 50, Christmas Eve, 24th night, and invite my company secretary. At that time, Accenture, we had 30, 40 secretaries, okay? And invite the secretary. About 10 people came, attend my party, 24th night, Christmas Eve. It means all those women, they don't have boyfriend.
Right.
So 10 people get together. I remember, I took dinner for all of those.
Right.
Right? I told them, okay, I never tell you for you come to my Christmas dinner. But all those ladies, young women, they don't have boyfriend. But they came.
Right.
But maybe sort of things will happen. Boy.
Right.
Or boy, or we can invite young woman, a boy or lady, boy or woman, girl. You're going to how to doing better.
Right. Yeah, there must be motivation. I mean, young people. I mean, you can. I don't know, but it seems like kind of natural that you want to find.
If I'm going to do that, I need to couple weeks stop writing books to prepare material or something. Not difficult. It's easy for me. I have had experience for those
Right.
Right.
So how to seduce a woman?
Yeah, how to seduce a woman. If we're going to this kind of title, very difficult to ask them, encourage them to come. Seduce is very they are feeling like some kind of shameful, right? Too much straightforward, right? Seduction is. I have technique, but if I go to I have technique for seduction of women, but many people reluctant to come. Or more too much soft like a communication, but also they don't come. In the middle. How to handle, how to treat. This is very difficult. What is that? Oh, seduction is straight word is better for doing something?
Okay, so first of all, who are you going to target? Are you going to target young men who do not have a relationship, or are you going to target people who are in a relationship and who are about to retire and who had completely lost touch? Get back in touch with your wife.
Any kind, but if I'm going to
But
write to any kind,
you need to choose. You need to choose.
Maybe I think if I can make contribution to Japanese people, to young people, all the people is just can divorce. Too late. So focus on young people, but young men or women? Men and women?
I think men.
Men. Okay.
I think men. Because, I mean, you're much more persuasive as a man to teach men than as a
You
man.
know that? You know that the current Japanese young men have some difficulty to contact young women.
Oh.
I know that. I can do that. I can teach them.
Right.
Okay, let's try to start. But not now. I need to make preparation.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
Another issue. This is actually, I tell you, I can make a big contribution to Japanese society. I know that how to do this. You know, but at the age of my age, I expense a lot. But,
but actually, I think Uno-san, you definitely have to look into ego, because I think that's one of the very big. So many men are afraid of their ego getting hurt because they believe that their rejection is such a big. The fear of being rejected is too big to even try.
What do you mean?
Well, men do not even try to.
They cannot discard their ego.
Exactly.
But Confucius said you should discard it.
Definitely. It should be worth your while, but a lot of people just give up because they find alternatives in I don't know, like hosts bars or just not finding a girlfriend, but more buying.
What do you mean?
Well, like prostitute service or videos or whatever. So not having to go through the personal risk of rejection, but
easy way.
More easy way. Yeah. I mean, the next problem is that basically there are a lot of relationships in Japan who do not really work very well between men and women.
Exactly. This is
that doesn't really give you hope. That's also one of the reasons why people may not actually even want to try, because damn.
You know, this is this is how I understand. That's right. So at this aspect, I understand Barclay what he's talking. And they have kind of men and women and men and man, everything. They have lots of aspects to analyze what they are.
Right.
Human beings, their mental is never stop, always moving around. But they are not fixed the aspect. Like an apple is not red. Right? Many aspects.
Right.
Time by time.
There are many viewpoints.
Very difficult, very not easy solution.
Right.
Even Trump, they have, I just told you, he's wicked man or villain and but revolutionist.
Right.
But he has lots of aspects.
Right. So that's another thing of how to win a woman, because like even though if you're dead ugly, I mean maybe there are other elements in you that you can actually highlight in order to be very attractive.
Exactly. Okay, so today is
right.
I try to discuss with you, but just kind of
So
seminar.
today
I try
we
to
got again stuck. Okay.
maybe in September.
But actually, Uno-san, I have good news because maybe the next week, I think we have a video that will give you more philosophy about more similar to Confucianism. So a road, give you advice in practical life how to deal with practical questions in life.
What are you going to do?
So next week, I'm talking about
I think Takahashi is next Monday. He will not join because his family is coming.
right, Monday we don't have, right?
No, Monday is already not plan.
Really?
Yeah.
We didn't have last Monday?
No, we didn't. But okay, we're going
Okay.
shifting to next Monday.
Okay, that's
Because
fine.
next Monday, Takashi will not join. We have family here there.
All right. Where is Alain de Botton? Yes.
What time?
Alain de Botton is it is 1 hour and 20 minutes, but it's a very good video, and he describes a number of philosophies that give practical guidelines how to live your life in a good way. So this is less abstract than Locke. It's less abstract than Descartes, but it's more. These are also Western philosophers who give more of an ethical, who have an ethical theory. So an ethical approach in their philosophies.
By the way, Westerners, they don't have how to seduce women?
No.
No?
No, no. Well, of course there is a small group, but I think it's very minor.